Hey all, welcome to the new panel titled What Publishers Look For in a Good Book. As you know, finding a publisher is so important. So it would be awesome if you could hear from the publishers themselves and find out the sneaky secrets and tricks that will help to hook them from the moment they open your book. So I've got some awesome publishers with me. Ed, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am the Chief Legal Officer of Burning Willow Press, Executive Vice President, and Head Flunky.
So basically he's the big cheese. Nikki?
I'm Nikki, and I'm the CEO of the Dragon's Rocket Ship Publishing.
Oh, awesome. Joshua?
My name is Joshua Robertson, and I am the CEO of Crimson Edge Press. We focus on fantasy, historical fiction, and dystopian fiction at our press.
My favorite genres. Monique?
Hello, my name is Monique Happy. I'm the Managing and Acquisitions Editor of Winlock Press. We're a branch of Permuted Press, and I also own and operate Monique Happy Editorial Services, and I help a lot of indie authors with getting their books out there.
Wow, that's awesome. So I've got these publishers here to break it down so we can understand what they look for when they look at your book. So Joshua, why don't you hit us with the first thing that you look for when evaluating whether or not to sign an author or a book?
Sure. Our process with Crimson Edge is pretty straightforward. We have an acquisition editor that's on our team, so he actually sees everything before I do because I'm kind of the face of the press, so I'm out there a lot, and people oftentimes think that because they know me, I'll automatically publish them, which is not the case. So he reviews all of our manuscripts that come in through our submission process, and really he's looking for a few things. One, he's looking to make sure that the idea for whatever is being submitted is a twist to something that's already kind of popular out there, and that there is a market out there for that book to be published. We oftentimes play with the idea that no idea is really unique. It's just a spin-off of an idea that's already been told or a story that's already been told. And so he's looking for a unique writing style and a unique introduction to whatever those elements are. Of course, we're looking for somebody that's got an ability to write a craft. We have a lot of stories that come in that it's just a jumbled up mess of text, and you really can't, you get into the first few pages and you don't even know what the story is about or what you've really read. And so it's got to be something that's fluid, and it looks like it's really been through a couple of editing processes already, and the writer themselves have taken themselves fairly seriously. And then really the other pieces are looking for a solid plot line, not only in the development of the story, but also the character. So the character starts off at one place in the beginning of the story, and through the book, they end up at another place at the end of the story. So you're not essentially having this stale character throughout the entire book that doesn't go through any changes or isn't impacted by the events that take place in the book, and that the plot is continuously moving, just not pages and pages of you describing to me what that dress looked like or what that pastry tasted like.
I'd have to say that those kind of books with so much detail, unless your name is Tom Clancy, you can't really get away with it. Nikki, what would you say are the three most important things that you look at when evaluating a submission?
Usually the first thing I worry about is if I can work with the author. Like, if they're friendly in their email and polite, then they're more likely to get my notice. But if they start off being rude and short with me, then I don't care how great your book is, I don't want to sign a contract with you for a year. But once it comes to the actual story process, I want something that basically gives me emotions and sucks me in, and just, I want to just read that and do no other work for the rest of the night. I want to be able to finish that book right there. If you can get me hook, line, and sinker, then it's usually a guarantee.
Now, how often does that happen, that you read a new submission and it's 10 hours later and you realize you've read the whole thing?
It's probably a good 50% of them. Some of them I can put down and they need some more help. But, I mean, we have some really good ones, so I've been really happy.
That's awesome. One more.
The characters, like Joshua was saying, the characters need to be unique in some form of way. They can't be Mary Sue's. I want to be able to feel for the character. I want to be able to portray myself in their footsteps and be able to like them. There's very few books where you dislike the character and still want to keep reading. It can be done, but it's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
I think that is a challenge that some writers like to take on, is writing just this asshole that over the course of the book, you know, you come to identify with.
Gone Girl did that pretty well.
Yeah, I'd follow up on that, Andy. Actually, I agree with Nikki. That's a second piece of our process, is looking at how well the author is in terms of just their basic personality. Because I swim around out there in the ponds of authors a lot, I really see what they do on social media, how much they complain, how much they dog presses, how much they, really turn away their fan base by either calling names or insulting people or whatever they're doing on Twitter or Facebook. And so you could send me the best manuscript in the world, but if you have a history as an author of stirring the pot and causing problems, you're probably going to get your manuscript rejected.
That's interesting. That's actually something I wanted to touch on a bit later, is whether that is more important, but we'll get to that later. Ed, why don't you tell us your 3 most important things that you consider when you look at a manuscript?
Like Nikki had already touched on, it has to hook me within a couple chapters. If I get a manuscript, I don't care what else you've published in the past. So your long listed resume does not incite me at all. Unless you're Stephen King, doesn't matter. But if you bring me a manuscript and you say, hey, I need this, I need you to look at this, whatever, your email's friendly, like she said. Nikki and I actually run in a lot of the same circles. Some of her authors are also my authors.
So it's a competition.
Yeah, it's interesting that we have a lot of the same authors. As a matter of fact, I think you just saw my boss walk behind me. She made me some coffee because I'm about to freeze to death. I've been outside all day. My big thing is it has to hit me within 3 chapters. If I'm not hooked within 3 chapters, I'm not going to publish it. But I will give you the opportunity to send it back after you do a rewrite. The reason I do that is because I don't think there's any story that cannot be told. It needs to be told from your point of view. You're an author, Andy. You understand that. Joshua, I don't know if you're an author or not. This is the first time we've ever had a chance to meet semi face-to-face. Nikki and I talk all the time. We help each other a lot. We're pretty good friends. I told her the other day she's beautiful. And Monique has been friendly with me for a number of months now. So we do talk to one another. So if you've got a bad reputation, like Joshua had mentioned, I do watch everybody's Facebook and Twitter posts and Instagram posts and stuff like that too. If you're out there dogging my press or any other presses that, you know, I'm friendly with or whatever, or not even friendly with, I'm probably going to say something to you. Being the vice president of the company, I don't put up with that, because if you're willing to say that about mutual publishers, what are you saying behind my back? I have a very strict policy on not getting involved with, like Monique, I know she's a part of Permuted Press, and I hate to say this with her listening in, but Permuted Press had a problem a couple years ago where they were letting a bunch of authors go. And it made the reputation drop down a little bit in the eyes of the indie publishers. I made it personal and public that we will not bash Permuted Press, period. It is their decision. That is their marketing strategy. And it may work out for them, it may not. It doesn't matter to me what other companies do. I want to know how they treat their authors, because I try to treat all of mine with respect.
It's interesting. I guess it's kind of like that thing where you say, you know, when you're on a date, see how the person treats the waiters, and that'll give you an idea of what they're really like. So in essence,
God, if we went that route, Kendra probably would have married me on day 1. I tip really over 30% sometimes.
Wow. He's just, as the editor, he's just rolling in the money.
No. No, but I will tip for good service, and I will tip above the standard 15%, because I know that their jobs are really hard sometimes, and they have really bad, you know, customers at times that really just drive them nuts. I was married, before I married Kendra, I was married to another woman who was a waitress for years.
Wow.
And I understand. I do. So, you know, I always tip pretty good. But that's not what we're here talking about today. I'd go off on a tangent on that in another one.
All right, Monique, you're up. The 3 things that are most important when you look at a submission.
Right. Well, I have to say that I agree with everybody so far. If I open up a submission, first of all, let me start from the beginning. If they follow the rules of the submission, that's a good start.
That is
Right. If my rules are, you know, email me at this address, send me a Word document, I want the whole thing, and I also want you to give me a 1-paragraph synopsis of what it is. then I'm more likely to open it and read it. If someone reaches out to me that I've never met or don't know on Facebook and they try to send me something through Facebook, that's a point against you. And then when I get the book, I start reading it. If I can get through the first 2 chapters, I will continue to read it. If it's well written, if it seems to be edited already. I mean, we will give our books an edit as needed, but if it's clear that the manuscript has been sent to us and it's never seen an editor, that's another point against the author. And then at the end, I have to say the ending. If I read the book and I get all the way to the end and it seems like they rushed the ending or they lost interest by the time they got to the ending, and so it trails off weakly, I would say I would probably take a pass on that manuscript.
Interesting. That's good. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the ending is almost as important as the beginning. You know, the beginning is needed to hook the reader into the story, but that ending closes the circle of the story, and it sort of gives that sense of closure. And if you have a great story with the crappy ending, it's really almost as bad as a crappy story overall, because you feel like you've invested yourself, both as a reader and as an author. I feel like I have invested myself in this character and in this world and what they've done, and then they've sort of let me down at the end. And I almost feel annoyed, more annoyed than I was if I looked at the book and said, oh, you know, it's not my thing, and didn't keep reading.
Absolutely. And I also like to look at series potential, because I feel like the series seems to do a lot better. It's rare that you see a standalone book like really take off, but if I'm reading something and I know the writer has either another book or 2 ready or they're plotted out already, and I feel like it has a very strong series potential, I'd be much more inclined to find that author.
Interesting.
That was actually one of my other, because I did 5, but one of them was that the novel gives you closure, but also for potential of future stories. Like the Dresden Files does that really well, where Jim Butcher closes it really well, and you get closure for that story, but then you're like, no, I need more. Where's the other book? And if a book does that, then it's like, that's golden. That's what you want.
I have a
Leave them wanting more.
I have a question for Monique. Following up on your series idea, do you try to keep, at whatever cost, do you try to keep that series in-house with them not going somewhere else? I mean, because that's something that I try to do. I try to keep all the books under one house because I think it does better for the publishing company to have all those books in one house.
Yeah, I do. And I tend to sign series. I'm working on a couple right now where the author has 3 written and another 1 or 2 that will be in my hands in the next. Yes, so I tend to sign series, and especially I want them all under our roof, because we don't just buy books, we invest in authors. So I tend to build a relationship with them. I might be called in to critique the idea for their next story in the series. It's, as I said, it's really an investment in our time, and I'm much more inclined to go with series and authors that, as Nikki said, are easy to work with, and to dovetail in with what the other said, someone that is not stirring up stuff on social networking platforms. I don't know if that answered that question or not.
It did. It did. Thank you very much. I know I told you because I got a cat attacking my couch, and I wanted to know what kind of damage he was doing to it so I could kill him later.
Uh-oh.
If I can follow up on that, Andy. One thing just that we oftentimes will talk to authors, especially authors where we reject their submissions. I think we had 180 submissions last year that we rejected and sent back to folks. And some of those happened to be because they were series books. And so some publishers take series and some don't. I think that's something that a lot of authors need to know, that some are more open to it. We're definitely open to series novels, and a lot of the ones that we publish are planned series that are out. But it's very important to us that the book itself can also serve as a standalone, and that the full plot structure is done within one novel, and that it can then pick up in the second one and continue the story. That doesn't mean that you can't have a small cliffhanger at the end or something like that, but there should be a full development of the story throughout the one single book.
Yeah, that's definitely the best. I know as a reader, when I read a series, I want each book to have sort of a circle that's closed at the end with those threads that lead into the next book. But I'm happy with the start, the middle, and the finish of that particular story. I've read a couple of books that weren't like that. They were constructed like the first book was the first act, the second book and the third book were each separate acts, and those drove me insane because you've got to have that cycle, so to speak. I mean, as a reader and as an author, that is so important for me.
Yeah, I think the only time that works where it's like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 is in young adult with the novellist look that they're going with lately, where it's like you have one novella and then there's 5 novellas in book 1, but each one is its own act. It works with that because it's still read like a one book, but it's separate. It's really weird, but that's the only time I think that works.
I've always thought of the novella as being like an episode on a TV show, kind of like, you read through the whole book and you're sitting there going, oh, well, where's this going to go? But it's like the episode of True Blood or Supernatural or,
Well, except Supernatural series endings are always horrible and I want to kill them. Why would you do this to me?
But that's the way I see novellas is, they're basically set up to be a series no matter how you do it. I only have a couple of authors that do novellas that are, that made it a complete book, and they could have expanded it and made it another, 20 or 30,000 words and made it to novel length. So if they're doing novellas, you got to almost expect them to do it as an episode, or like as it would be. If it could be a script, it would be a screenwriter's ideal place to start a movie or something, or a TV series, something of that nature.
Yeah, and there's a lot into that you have to be aware of for your own market if you're writing that type of story. If you're writing novellas, you can't be publishing one a year. You're just not going to get enough traction behind that to get an audience built up that's going to be interested in it. And so they have to be completed quicker, or you need to have a long list of them that are already done to put out regularly in order for your audience to be excited about.
Well, I have to disagree a little bit because my boss is over here and she writes novellas along with novels that are series, and she has standalones as well. And Kendra writes the Miss Hyde novellas, and she's got one hell of a following on that. Everybody's waiting for part 4 to come out, and she's in development on it. She's got I don't know what her development process is, but she's got 220-some thousand works in progress in her work in progress folder. So I told that to Mark Tufo one night, and he about had a heart attack because she had 217 works in progress. And he told Armand, "You got to quit bringing her on here. She's making us look bad." So, but she does work a lot, and she works on a lot of different projects at one time and helps me run our company. So
I think that's the exception, though. She still has work coming out, just not one to Miss Hyde. So the people who are still waiting for 4 are like, oh, here's another book that I can read by her.
Right, exactly. They can fill that void with this story and love it just as much as they love the Miss Hyde. Now, honestly, I love the Miss Hyde series, and I wanted to do 26 of them because that makes two years of TV series that I might be able to pitch to some television producer and might be able to make it a TV series quickly. But other than that, yes, I agree with the novella, Nikki, that, and Joshua, that you have to do more than one a year. It has to come out faster.
Yeah. And I'd agree with that. My thing would be the same as Nikki's. I know Kendra. Kendra is very active in social media. She does a lot of things, and she's regularly putting books out there, so she's keeping her following entertained with works that she's putting out instead of just putting out a short story every year.
Right. Andy knows her as well, and I know Monique does because she said, "You're going to be on there with Monique and Nikki?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, tell them I said hi." So, hi, guys.
I see how it is, Kendra. I see how it is.
Kendra just knows everybody in the publishing world. All right, now let me ask you this.
He does.
What is the first thing that will make you say no to a book? Anyone?
Oh gosh. If it's the first thing, if it's poorly written.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's a good one. That's a
Yeah,
good
lack
Did
of
you say
editing
poorly
is
written?
really a good one. Lack of
Because you just
basic
know,
editing.
you know immediately. Right.
Yeah, because I mean, the truth is that editing can help to fix an author's writing style, let's say, but an editor can only do so much of the actual writing. You know, the editor should only be making maybe 1,000 edits per book, because you know
It's
you
that much.
little things. But if it's basically overhauling an author's style because they don't know how to punctuate it, they don't know how to string their sentences together properly, then it's probably not a good submission.
Well, and this might be a way to look at it too. I don't know the full scope of the other presses that are sitting here, but we're a small press, which means that we have a limited staff. And so if we have a submission that comes in, no matter how great the storyline may be, if the editing is going to take up all of our time and we can't accept any other authors because of the amount of work that it takes in order to get that manuscript publishable, we have to reject it.
Thank you.
Right. Good point.
That makes sense.
Okay, what would I reject a story for immediately? Don't follow the guidelines. That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't follow my guidelines. They're posted as clear as day on my website. The submission guidelines. There's like 3 paragraphs you need to read through and follow those guidelines, and I'm going to drop you. The other one would be if it's never even been beta read, and you can tell. Potholes that have to be filled in with cement trucks, stuff like that. I mean, the first 3 chapters, if I can count on my fingers and toes within one chapter how many typos there are, you obviously did not edit your story and you sent me a raw copy. That's going to be a problem because I can't. It distracts me from reading. I'm looking at edit because I edit for Burning Willow Press as well. So if I'm looking at it, I'm constantly editing. It distracts from my flow, and if I can't flow through it, then obviously it's not going to be a good story. Now the storyline could be exceptionally well, but if I've already gone one chapter in and counted 10,000 different problems with it, my editor's going to bring me a new rear end because I sent them this very raw story that's never been proofread. I tell authors all the time, find 3 or 4 people that are not your best friends to beta read for you and proofread for you. If you can't find those people, then you need to get on some writers' Facebook pages and find some.
Or find a writer friend who is very honest.
Yeah, who doesn't like you that much.
No, they like me.
There you go.
They're
I
just
can always
not
get
afraid to
Andy
hurt
to edit
my
mine.
feelings.
I can get Andy to edit mine. If I have a superhero in mind, he's going to put me up against one of his and see, see if it does any good or not.
Absolutely. Nikki,
Well, and I'll tell you things that I hear from things we hear from our acquisitions editor, things like, I found 80 mistakes in the first paragraph. We have passive language, we have grammatical errors, we have punctuation errors. I don't even know if the main character is a man or a woman yet. I don't know what their name is. I don't know what the plot is. I don't know what the main problem is after the first 2 pages. Those types of things where it's just, you have no real clear concept of what's even happening. And of course, we look at, like I said, fantasy, historical fiction, dystopian fiction. And so you have to introduce a world, but it's got to be done in such a way that you're not completely losing track of the characters or the plot.
very cool. Nikki, do you have anything that will make you just shoot down a book immediately?
Honestly, the biggest thing would be the editing, and just when I'm reading it, if it's not hooking me in, I actually give them a chance and send it to an acquisition editor like Joshua has that will read it as well, because maybe it's just not my genre. But we always try to give some type of feedback as to why we're turning it down and give them a chance to better it.
That's awesome. All right, now this is going to be a really important question. What matters more to you, the story or the marketability of the book?
My tagline is it's all about the story.
Okay.
To actually answer that right there for you, it's at the top of my contracts. It's at the top of every one of my all the paperwork that my authors have to sign. It's on my shirts. It's on my swag. Everything that I do for the conventions. It's everywhere. It's all about the story. I want to know the story. It doesn't matter who the author is. The story's good. I'll do the marketing to make it fit if they'll help me.
That's good.
So we can get it out there. It's just they have to do their part too. I can't do 100% of it.
Interesting. Nikki, what about you? Story?
I think it's a story quality, honestly, because marketing is something you can learn how to do, and you can do that after the story's out there. But if you get people to read it and they don't give it a 4 and 5 star review and positive reviews, you're not going to keep getting that trend. So I'd rather work with somebody who has a really good book that when people read it, they're like, holy shit, than something that, oh, I can really pimp out my book, but then they read it and they get 2 stars.
That's true. That's true. Joshua, what about Crimson Edge?
I think that, as I said earlier, marketability is important, but you can't market a book without a good story. Story's got to come first.
That's true. Monique?
I have to agree. What's the saying? You can polish a turd, but it's still a turd. You can't market something that somebody's not gonna want to buy or recommend to their friends.
That's true. Very true. All right. Now, one final question. We've just got like 3 minutes left. How important is an author's platform to the submissions process? Will you pick up a book even if the author has 0 Facebook friends and Twitter friends just because the book is awesome? Or is that a really important factor?
I always pick them up.
Okay.
I'm an independent publisher. Yeah, we're getting there as far as size goes, but I'm an independent publisher. I want more indie authors. Now, I've got authors that are under my belt, like Peter Oliver Wonder, David Owen Hughes, and Shannon Perrin, Perrine. She hears this later. She'll cuss me out for mispronouncing her name. But yeah, I've got authors that are unknowns as well. And I mean, I've got TJ Weeks, Carrie Ellen Denny. So obviously it doesn't matter what their platform is as long as they can write a good story.
I honestly don't even look at the platform until after the fact, like once the book is done and I'm like, okay, go make it. We need a Goodreads. We need this. You have an author page, right? Like once the book's done, then I start worrying about all that. If they don't have a platform, I encourage them to get one so that they can pimp out their own book and help market it and make sure the word gets out. But it doesn't deter me from picking up their book and giving it a yes.
Interesting. Joshua?
The platform does not deter me from picking it up and doing a yes, but I've written enough articles on that I can't sway away from it, that how much that marketing platform is important, especially if you're being picked up by a small press. It really is necessary. I usually tell people they need to start building their platform 2 years prior to releasing their first book. So if we're picking up an author and we're looking at a year production schedule, we would be coaching them from day one to start building that platform and building hype around it so they start having a fan base to reach out to. So if the story's good, we're not going to deter it because we really feel like it's the press's job to do the marketing and help push it out. But fans want to be able to connect with the author. And if you don't have a place for them to do that at, it's going to be a hard time being noticed in the sea of all the other indie authors and small authors that are out there.
Very true. Monique, do you consider platform before you sign an author, or story is all that matters and then platform comes next?
Well, I tend to agree more with Joshua. It's got to be a good story. I have signed people who have absolutely no social networking skills, but most of the time I'll look at the story, then I'll look at what they can bring to the table as far as marketing and personality, which is very important. Are they connected with people already? Look how well Mark Tufo and Sean Chester do, and those guys are constantly talking to their fans. That doesn't mean I'll turn someone away. What it means is I'll sign them and then I'll train them in how to do it. I'll give them a Twitter class, or I'll tell them how best to get people to come into their website, and I'll talk to them about building newsletter lists in addition to our own newsletter list. So
I think I'm going to take
it's real. Go ahead.
I said I'm going to take your class in Twitter.
Okay, well, just, give me a call.
Yeah, sign up under her publishing. No. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining in and educating us about how to entice you to sign our books. Viewers, if you want to find out more about Burning Willow Press, Winlock Press, Crimson Edge, and Nikki, what was the name of yours again?
The Dragon's Rocket Ship Publishing.
Dragon's Rocket Ship. Check out the links below the video and you can see, learn more about them. Have a great day.